I'm super excited about my guest today. Oh my goodness. I want y'all to just welcome to the show. Daniela, welcome.
Hi, Candace. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were just talking about how it's early for me, but it's afternoon for you as you're over in beautiful Italy, right? It's Italy.
No, I'm visiting France, but I have Italian roots as well. That's why.
Yes. Okay, I think I still have my dreams of Italy and my trip that didn't happen because of COVID on my brain. So anyway, now that you're here with us, so Daniela, just tell us a little bit about your why for what you're doing now in your entrepreneurial journey.
The why is so fantastic, a fantastic question, right? This is what takes us to our purpose. My why is currently as a D&I consultant independently. I started doing this job because I want to educate people and society into a more inclusive world. So this is my main why. And yes, it's part of my just cause as well.
I've seen in 2020, now there have always been people such as yourself who have just been passionate about diversity and inclusion, period. Like it could be 2020, it could be 1990.
True.
I've always been passionate about it, but I've seen such an increase, and maybe it's just more of an awareness in 2020 of folks who are just really like out there and just passionate for the cause. So has anything changed for you in 2020 with D&I and pushing forward in that path? Just given what's going on.
Definitely COVID, confinement, everything changes. The perspective of our work and what we do, in my case, I saw a huge awareness growing. Why? Because inequality, which was already something very big, became more visible because it was more often put aside because I'm not concerned. But as soon we were confined, it became really huge problem for inclusion as well, for governments to understand how we can actually help everyone, include everyone in our decisions. In France, particularly, when they take decisions the first week, every time, after a week, they keep listening to people and representatives over each category, like entrepreneurs and employees, but also women and minorities, because they take some decisions urgently, but they know there is a lack of completing the program. So it is the same thing with inclusion in the workplace. The first moment they took the decisions for the confinement, companies were not ready for working in distance, like thinking about hierarchy models, right? We cannot no longer see our employees. We don't know what they're doing. How can I control it? So the controlling mindset is very complicated to shift. But in the other side, it became evident they needed to change and improve. So people like me who works in helping leaders become inclusive became more interesting for them. Like my service, I started seeing direct interest from leaders coming to me since May and June, specifically to become inclusive, work on their approach. And yes, recruitment as well. And how can we be more inclusive in the way we recruit at distance? Since we don't see people. Well, maybe it's a positive thing. You don't have this bias. Let's change the way we do things. So it increased my visibility because I became like double, triple more active in building community and allyship and speaking up, because I saw the urgency as well to raise my voice, but also the minorities' voice around. Mm-hmm. And it's impacted the way I work, because I had to convert everything, implement digital workshops, modalities like online, Zoom. I think we all had this shifting part, which is actually a lot of learning and creativity sparkling, because as entrepreneurs, we need actually to explore the side of how can we innovate and be constantly learning and bring something different to thrive.
You know what I find interesting that I really didn't think about until you just brought it up now. The whole
Mm,
idea of the fact that we can't the virtual working piece for a lot of the companies or clients that you end up, taking on,
mm,
how that has sparked so much of a whether it's releasing the unconscious bias or getting them to, of course, let go of control. That has always come in my mind, but I never thought about it from that diversity side of things. This
mm.
gives you the opportunity to drop off some of the things that you used to hold and see when people would walk through the door, or your misconceptions, of course, about people's working style. But that alone just makes me say 2020 has done wonders for some people. It just
Yes, definitely. There is a lot of work yet to come.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. So now tell me, so your path into entrepreneurship, did it start with D&I and your consulting on that path?
No, not at all. I started as a headhunter, simply. It was right away when I came to France, when my French was still a little bit limited. It was the way I found as more easy, let's say, for me as a foreigner to start up my business. Also because I have an international profile, like I speak 5 languages, so I didn't need to start my business and concentrate in the market, local market. And as a headhunter, it was interesting to start partnering with a friend who was as well a headhunter in another country. In the beginning, it was really to help me like get settled in the country. And I will be honest that in the beginning, I didn't had much idea of how it would be evolving. And I didn't really had my why yet 100% defined. I had my values because I have been actually studying about human behavior for a while for personal reasons, but I took a while to actually apply it into my business. And DNI came after when I had the click where
Mhm.
something was missing. Having headhunting is not inclusive mostly. It's just about how I was feeling, and it was not according to my own values, personal values. I was missing out and not feeling happy. So I decided to review everything and reconnect my purpose, find out my real purpose actually. And I was like, no, I really need to implement something else around my business. And then headhunting became the inclusive headhunting. It means I will challenge my clients and partners in a very kind way. I will try to educate them and make them know that their bias actually behind the recruitment, because it's normal. Like for years they have been doing this way. I need a profile. You search me the profile and that's it. I want a man or I want a woman. It sometimes exists this kind of requests which is not visible. And sometimes they're simply eliminated from the list, even if it's not verbally said. So if me as a headhunter, I'm not aware and I don't know how to communicate to the partner or to the clients, it will be harder to eliminate bias from headhunting, right?
Right.
So this is one of my goals in headhunting, but it's no longer my main business. I do now D&I consulting and trainings, which includes the inclusive leadership program for leaders, helping them work on their vulnerability, humility, empathy, unconscious bias, all that involves being connected with their people. And yes, in the other side, I have, as an entrepreneur, we have many slashes
Oh, yeah.
coming sometimes, especially in these times. We use everything we have
Mm,
as a plus.
yeah.
And that's why I do also executive career advisory, which includes assessment in inclusive leadership approach.
Mhm.
So I assess my leaders before we work together. Then we can understand where they are. It's not to judge them, it's to help them reflect and maybe thrive later.
Mhm.
And learn as well in the way. Some very
Right.
often they come to me because they're looking for a job, but then they discover something else.
And Daniela, I love how you had this evolution. Like you figured out, you had the headhunting business and still felt something was missing and got aligned with that purpose and it just evolved. Okay, all right. So this inclusiveness is missing. Okay, so I need to be doing more of this full scale thing with DNI. And sometimes I think, I'll put it like this. I think it's a beautiful thing when, as an entrepreneur, and we'll talk about that multiple things in a minute, but as an entrepreneur, that we have this opportunity to just easily evolve. It's like that world of opportunity. Oh, okay, this now feels like the right thing, and that we can go after it. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship to me. It's one of the beauties of it.
Being a visionary, right? We need to be
Yep.
like
Yeah.
seeing the opportunity and taking them. And I would add, nowadays, if you don't have sustainability in your work, no matter what, it's you are missing out. Right? Sustainability, it means bring out everything related to social, environmental, and it means respect to you, to people around you, but also to how we treat our planet. So it's about connecting change makers and making it actually a thing and part of every single step we take in the entrepreneurial world. I think it would be companies that are not, like I'm talking in all senses, not only small individuals, entrepreneurs, but also big companies. If they don't take this path, we are really being out of the market later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Impact is everything. Like do something that makes an impact. That I love it. So let's talk a little bit about these multiple things. Because we had an earlier conversation where, for everybody listening or watching, when I first met Daniela, we were having a conversation and then we got into this whole serial entrepreneur thing. And we were like, yes to things. Like there's just this fun in having, there's some wisdom also in it, but there's this fun in having different things happening that you could get your hands into. So talk about what that means for you right now in terms of multiple things. Like why have it going on?
As I mentioned before, of course, I still maintain a line of what I'm doing. I have this headhunting that became inclusive headhunting, D&I consulting training in companies. I'm a lecturer in a business school. And then I have the executive career advisory, but they are all connected. I identified how I could actually implement inclusion and diversity in every single service I offer and make it more different from others as well. I don't know any other competitor that does the assessment in inclusive leadership approach for the career advisory for leaders. Maybe there is, but in my research of benchmark, it's not, at least in this area. Basically, being multilingual as well, multicultural, it helped me. So I don't really focus in only one market. Of course, my main clients come from Europe or Brazil, because I've been in Europe, living in Europe for 15 years now. I already experienced it living in Milan, in Italy, in England. I had a moment I lived in London, Madrid for 3.5 years, and I've been living in France for 5 years now. All this brings you, but the ability to cultural possibilities also. I see myself as a citizen of the world, so being an entrepreneur based in France, where I actually live in the seaside close to Bordeaux, I've been working remotely actually since before COVID, okay? I was already used to Zoom calls to do things by distance. The difference was traveling, because I was traveling, visiting potential clients and doing workshops live, because it was the way I could actually have contact with people. Well, COVID changed it, but I actually increased my service. I created masterclass online where I can actually reach many other countries. Now they are requesting for online trainings. Mm-hmm. So why not take this opportunity as well to bring up something new that I was actually procrastinating in the past.
pushed you right into it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Inside of my Facebook group, I always ask them when I get ready to roll over a new month, hey, what would you like to learn more about? Or what would you like to just know more about? And one person made a request around how to launch a business during a pandemic. And so I did a live, I think it was last week. I did a live on
Hmm.
just like the untapped upside of a pandemic launch. And even just what you said about, all right, I was forced into doing my master classes, but now, of course, you, citizen of the world, and you've been in all these different places, and your business is scalable across the world.
Yeah.
It's just evidence of
Yeah.
how many opportunities there are even with what's happening in the world. The pandemic is not a curse for some. Now, I say that, granted, there have been lives that have lost, respectful of that. But from a business perspective, especially those that are fully in their employee role and haven't stepped out into entrepreneurship, there can just be this fear of, well, people are losing their jobs, so for some reason I should hold on tighter to mine. How that logic rolls out. But just during this pandemic, like your masterclass is an example, like how have you felt from a business perspective and just business growth perspective overall during this time?
I saw it. I'm an optimistic, so it's really sometimes it's hard for people being around me if they are not. I will be always bringing some solution instead of problem. I want to challenge the diversity as well. If something is happening, okay, what can I do with what I have now? And I did a lot of brainstorming with myself and to understand what can I do. And I try a different approach. And I think entrepreneurship is that as well. Be open to try things and just do it and see if it works. Don't wait it for being perfect as well. And just launch it and go for it and make contacts with the community and be present in the social media, but not what I see wrong with entrepreneurs sometimes is that they are too thinking in the commercial part. So I need to sell. But if you think all of that and don't think about behavior and how you're actually bringing the interest to this selling part, then you waste your time and you become just spam in others' feeds. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
What I do is really engage with people and take the time to really understand the behavior behind. Like, for example, LinkedIn, it's a very good way to observe that in conversations. It depends of the sector you are working, so you need to search for the thread that means something to you. So in my case, everything related to diversity and inclusion. When I see opinions and what's happening, what people are thinking, it's there where I also find sometimes potential clients or partners that can actually join me. And then we create a connection of opinions first, or you can also have a connection of values and even disagree, but in a very diplomatic way as well, respectfully. But the disagreement will show as well your knowledge very often. That's the most important. Because if we agree all the time in conversations, and I would tell you, like in forums and any kind of thread, you understand what the people like they really know behind their expertise is the opinion they're giving. If you are really being mindful in what you're saying, being respectful, not imposing your opinion, but giving it as perspective to others, just add in there, and maybe we can discuss later.
Bringing that sort of, okay, here is my thoughts to the table. Here is my, it's not necessarily, hey, here's my expertise, but here's my thoughts to the table, and having people in those conversations that allow you to understand, all right, let's just see where they are. And sometimes those conversations are just great, meaningful dialogue. And sometimes you uncover someone who really needs what you have to offer. And here's your opportunity to help them get to that next place.
Exactly. And actually bringing source and facts as well behind your opinion, always.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're promoting yourself or you're promoting your opinion as well. So to promote anything, you need facts and source to be credible, like visible in a very good way. And thinking about threads and social media, of course, there are haters as well. So you also need to be mindful to when is it really worth to keep the conversation, right? Or just let it go. So entrepreneur is also, it's not only about threads and this kind of conversation, but being an entrepreneur in general. The let it go part is very important. And thinking, moving forward, like how can we do now? What's the next step?
Right.
Having many plan A, B, C.
Just being able to map it out. Absolutely.
And don't be alone.
Yeah. A lot of times you'll hear people say entrepreneurship is a lonely journey and that type of thing. And I am of the mindset that it does not have to be. It really doesn't have to be.
I agree.
You may have to, bring in new people into your circle that understand the path that you take and some of the challenges that you take, but it doesn't have to be. And it's better off if it's not. To be honest.
Yeah, and we are living in an era where collective intelligence is the key. I see so many co-creations and collaborations around me, and when I look for partners, I look also the connection of values and how can we complement each other. I don't see my fellows, people who work in the same fields, as competitors. I see them as people who has an excellent knowledge that I can also do exchange of best practice. And maybe I'm not covering your market and we can also help each other in some way or create something or even just be connected, inspire each other. There is always something to learn from each other. Bringing the inspiration into your calendar, it's very important as an entrepreneur. I do a lot of best practice, by the way, with D&I, and this is the most interesting part of this field, I think, is the willingness to talk to you and sharing, not having this fear that usually competitors have, right, of sharing.
Yeah, because by definition, you all are supposed to be inclusive and
yeah, but then I have the same offers, and maybe I have something that this fear exists as well because of how we are learning in the way how to be entrepreneurs. When they teach you to be a boss more than a leader, that's what happened. But I think the new generation is changing as well. It's becoming more and more best practice, being part of the way of they do business. So that's why there is many communities. That's why not being alone, it means as well being part of a community close to you, or now it's online, so it's easy to go anywhere. I'm part of many, and it really nurtured me deeply.
Mm-hmm. So no reason to be alone, literally. There is.
Yes.
There are tons of options. Awesome. So one of the things that we didn't talk about before we close out here, and this is always like people want to know, either they're like, hey, how do I manage right now because I am still working a job and I'm an entrepreneur, or what's that coveted moment when you broke out into your business full time? Now remind me, are you in your businesses full time?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that moment, Daniela, when you made that transition of being, hey, I am in my businesses full time. There is nothing else here. Here we go.
I will be honest that in the first year when I started, at least the first 10 months, I was worried about how can I keep it going. I was afraid of the entrepreneurship because I wasn't someone who actually dreamed of being an entrepreneur in my life. I never really thought about it. I always thought about coming to a new country, I will look for a job. Speaking many languages may be easier for me as well to be more stable. Stability was part of my vocabulary. Basically, I lost so much focus being an entrepreneur and looking for a job, because I was like thinking, yeah, I can do entrepreneurship, but I think it's not my thing 100%. I need to have something safe every month that I am sure will be there. And yeah, I was looking for a part-time job. It never happened because suddenly I understood, no, I actually don't want to work for anyone else. And I lost this fear. But it came with a lot of work behind the self-development, personal development, with being part in creating. I founded a movement in Bordeaux, which is Leaning Bordeaux. It's a part of a leaning movement from Sheryl Sandberg, coming from US.
Yep.
And I'm the founder in the local community. This woman getting together and men through circles, which are masterminds, peer support groups, helped me understand that I was investing a lot in the community, in my social projects, but I was afraid of investing and putting my face in front of my business. Like even to put my picture in my website was really complicated.
Wow.
In the beginning, we talk about not the legitimate thing, and also the imposter syndrome that they talk about, because the imposter syndrome actually is something that is implanted in you. Society make you think you should be modest, or showing your picture break the modesty and social norms. It's all behind bias, what we actually suffer to create a business. I talking about being a woman entrepreneur in this case. It's more related to this side. But then, suddenly after the first year and a half, I actually lost my father as well in the way. It was a very hard moment that made me really go down and rethink my meaning and my purpose. It was part of my grief was actually one of the reasons that I actually changed my perspective on my business. What am I doing? What am I impacting? What's the sense behind my work of every day? Why I wake up? And that was the moment when I shifted everything. I was like, I will be full-time and I will dedicate it to my community as well and my business 100%. To make it work and meaningful.
Yeah, it's amazing how when you're so tied into that impact and the purpose that you have, that everything else starts to become distant memories. Because I have work to do. And there are people who need me. My work is important. If I don't do this work, it becomes that type of thing. And having that type of mindset to me, it becomes easy to let go of fear. Like the other things start to seem smaller in comparison to you not doing what you should be doing to help other people. So I love that. I love it. I love it. You know what, Daniela, this has been just an outstanding conversation, like an outstanding.
Fantastic.
And I am so happy that you were able to join in. Even though it's early, it's afternoon for you, that you were able to join in. I was able to wake up. You were able to join in and just really bring to life, especially some of this purpose and intention, and that the whole citizen of the world concept, which almost every entrepreneur, unless you're solely local business focused, now has this opportunity to be in this global space, which is awesome and amazing. So anyway, thank you for being on the show, Daniela.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and really lovely learning more about your path as well in the way.
We have many more fun conversations to have. So tell the folks how they can get connected with you if they want to learn more or anything like that.
Of course, LinkedIn is the first top way to talk to me and just reach out and say something meaningful as well. Please. I think this is the way we remember people. And my website, if you want to get a look at www.danielafalleti.com. It's my source of everything. There is my story there. So if you want to learn more what I do, and just reach out by email, LinkedIn, I'll be happy to share more.
Awesome. And folks, we are going to make sure that Daniela's info is in the show notes at CandiceSpears.com. So you'll be able to grab it there as well. Again, Daniela, thank you so much. It's been just a pleasure to have you on. And in the spirit of not being alone, always great to chat with a fellow entrepreneur and a fellow female entrepreneur bonus. So again, thank you, Daniela. So for those of
Thank you,
you who
Candice.
are listening or watching, listen, you know what I always say, take this and take some action. Daniela had some beautiful things, especially in that D&I space and purpose, and take it all, soak it all in, and don't just hold on to it, use it. So I hope you all have a great day, a great evening, whenever you are listening or watching, and I'll talk to you again very soon.